FCPA Dr. Margaret Nyakang'o is the controller of budget, as you can see there, of the Republic of Kenya, with over 30 years of experience in public and finance strategic management and governance. She holds a doctorate in business administration from the University of Liverpool in the UK and a fellow of the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya. A very passionate advocate for accountability and inclusive leadership. Dr. Nyakang'o has served on various boards and taught at KCA University. She's a certified coach, mediator, and trainer, and was awarded the Chief of the Order of the Burning Spear, CBS, for her contribution to national development. And really would not want to take a lot of time, just some minutes to make a presentation, have a discourse on the topic, which, according to your program, the topic, which is very wide, includes enhancing session 8 of your program on page 20. It says enhancing devolved governance in building local resilience, public trust, and sustainable development. And so she will be making that presentation briefly. Please join me in welcoming FCPA Dr. Nyakang'o to come forward. As she comes forward, we know that she's a no-nonsense person, and we are very proud of her as people, of the people from the professional bodies. As she comes, the chairmen who are here, yesterday we recognized the CEOs only, so we are going to recognize you shortly after this, after the controller budget. Maybe she's going to allocate some money for us for chairmen to come and speak also in the future. Thank you. Karibu.
Thank you, Prof. Nifanye kutoka kwa ile. Asante sana, and you have aptly said that I'm no nonsense, which I accept with grace, so that you don't ask for money in this room, because that would amount to somebody said it, not me. So good morning, everyone. It is indeed my pleasure to be here to share a few nuggets. Just like Prof said, the topic was fairly wide, but I tried to limit myself to what I do. And I'm sure you, as the professionals, you must be understanding what I do as the controller of budget. But probably it will be becoming clearer as we go through the presentation. So, the overall theme is enhancing devolved governance, building local resilience, public trust, and sustainable development. And as we can see from that theme, there are some key words, and of course, governance comes out very strong, resilience comes in very strong, public trust, and sustainable development. And each of those has just as much weight as the next one. So I tried to look from the point of view of the COB, some of the areas that I could touch on and that could add value to this whole theme. To look at what we mean by devolved governance, look at some of the laws that cover devolved governance. Then I'll be looking at some of the principles that we follow, as well as the benefits of good governance. Having done that, I would like to look at 5 areas of focus in strengthening governance and accountability, followed by 5 recommendations on what we can do about those areas of focus. Then I'll finish by linking governance to sustainable development goals as we know them, and conclude the presentation. So generally, when we talk about devolved governance, or governance as a whole, we are looking at how we control and direct. Controlling and directing are the key words there. how do we make decisions, and how are the decisions implemented? That determines whether we are on the proper path. And after doing that, looking at process and how the decisions are implemented, we bring in an evaluative attribute. And evaluative in the sense that we must always go back. That is where control comes in. It's like a thermostat. You go back and find out whether what you set out to do is actually being done in the manner that you want it to be done. That is where we bring in evaluation. So monitoring, evaluating, and reporting then become cogs, very important cogs in that wheel of governance. And my office, as the controller of budget, involves that whole process of monitoring and controlling budget implementation and reporting to Parliament on the same. So when we are looking at the devolved governments, then you must ask, how do they account for themselves all the way from the way they plan, from the way they implement, and all the way to how they report. Now, in the Constitution, if we look at Chapter 11, we see the principles of devolution. In particular, Article 174 gives us the objectives where we deal with the equity, with social and economic development, as well as accessible services. And I've bolded that because accessible services, as the chair, whom I acknowledge was just arrived, Karibu Sana, Chair of Council of Governors, and my colleague, accessible services are very, very important. It's not enough just to have the services, they must be accessible. Then when we look at Article 176, it gives us the structure of the counties. So we get to see how the county assembly and the county executive relate to each other. That is Article 176, and all of you with smartphones, you can access it even right away. Then we go to Article 186, and here we see the county functions, we see the ones that are exclusive, we see the concurrent ones, and the residual ones. And that particular Article 186 then tells us that whatever has not been assigned to the county governments remains with who? With the national government. And that is very important in understanding why certain things happen the way they do. Then the PFM Act, we have specific provisions for the county governments and the PFM regulations, county governments, to provide the way accountability in finances is handled at the devolved level. We also see that to support this legislation, the County Government Act also establishes the county assemblies, how elections of governors is done, and generally the whole issue of managing the county finances. So what are we experiencing right now? And I just looked at 1 week in the media, and I was quite disturbed. Those are some of the headlines that I read. The state left us to die. That was on April 13th. On 17th, I saw a heading saying, Afya House Chiefs doctored organ trafficking dossier. Next, on 20th, I saw one saying, questions over 13 billion diverted by 15 counties. That was on April 20th. And there was even another one on 13th that said, an ease in Raila camp. I didn't make those, ladies and gentlemen. I simply picked from a few newspapers that I had on my desk for the week. And what does that tell us really? When you look at those headlines, what does it tell you about the level of public trust? And you remember our theme is about public trust. In public trust, it's not just about trusting your neighbor. It's about what you think about what is happening and what you think about governance, the way things are done, the way decisions are made. Is there trust? I don't expect answers, but perhaps at the end of the presentation, you might tell me if your level of trust is improving. Now, what are some of those governance principles then, which, if we find missing, we will know that the governance is wrong? Decentralization. It's about decision making. And when we talk of decentralizing, we are saying moving from the one government to the many governments. So have the many governments been empowered to make their own decisions? That is one of the principles of devolved governance. Citizen participation, very, very important in the development and implementation of policies and programs, and I'm sure other speakers will be touching on that. Accountability. Accountability for the actions and also for the services. Cooperation between national and county governments. They are separate, they are independent, but they must work together. Resource sharing, which ensures that counties have sufficient resources to fulfill their functions. It's not enough just to tell them to do things if you don't finance them to do those activities. Notably, the county governments, Section 39, talks about accountability of the members of the executive. Here we are talking about the ministers, the waziris. Yeah? The members of the county executive, and I quote, are individually and collectively accountable to the governor in the exercise of their powers and performance of their duties and responsibilities. So here now, we are zooming into the issue of accountability. Who is accountable and to whom are they accountable? A committee of the county assembly may require a member of the executive committee, one, to attend or appear before the committee or answer any question relating to the members' responsibilities. So, those who are ministers, they are given responsibilities, but they are not an end in themselves. Because first and foremost, they must be accountable to the governor, and they must be accountable to the county assembly. And that's why we are being told that they may at any point be asked to go to the county assembly and explain themselves. Yeah? So this chain of accountability then ensures that everybody does their work the way they are expected. Still on that area of strengthening governance and accountability, we look at transparency in decision making. And we see that making all relevant government data, including budgets, when we come to expenditures, development plans, yeah, the law requires that they be publicly available and accessible. Why should we consider this a form of accountability? Because it's not enough to prepare a budget and say, yes, this is what we are going to do. You have even taken it through public participation. But if other people cannot see it, then you have not accounted for yourself. So we are saying that this is a crucial form of accountability to show how you have made your decisions and make that available for scrutiny to whoever would like to see that. Indeed, I can confirm that in my office, I always get requests of members of the public asking to see the budgets of their counties, and we are obliged to give them as long as they have asked in writing and specified who they are. Now, we're also saying that in order to comply with this accountability mechanism, we have offices like mine. Here I'm the one in focus. Then we have the county assemblies, we have the Auditor General, we have the anti-corruption. So what are we saying about accountability? That the counties, that is the devolved governments, have a duty to give us information as and when we require it. For instance, my office requires that every quarter, every end of quarter, within 30 days, after the end of the quarter, I must receive all the spending reports, which I then compile, and after I've compiled, I also post my reports on my website. So you can go to COB website and you can get the reports of what has been happening. Another area of focus that I would like to move to is that of public participation as a form of governance in the devolved governments. Now, here we see public hearings. I'm sure any day that you open the paper, you will see some county government or national government is advertising for public hearings for decisions that need to be made. It could be the budget, it could be some other planning that needs to be done. But then it becomes very important that the public participate in those mechanisms. So we find, when we looked at what has been happening, we found that public hearings are actually the highest ranked, followed by newspapers. We see newspapers playing a great role. Some have been even using media like TVs and radio to get the message out and ensure that the public know what is happening. So we looked at some of the percentages in terms of how the public participate, and we found out that website is not very well used, but it is growing at 13%. Radio is contributing about 27%. Then the public hearings and newspapers, you can see closely just at around 30%. So those percentages are not very good. So what we are saying is that the public is not as involved as it should be. And this is one area then that needs to be enhanced. Let us look at another area on how we can enhance governance, and this is how to strengthen the legal frameworks. So it cannot be gainsaid that a robust legal framework, both at county and national level, helps to enforce the guidelines for public officers' responsibilities and duties. So strengthening the judicial system would deal effectively with aspects of corruption, misuse of power, and non-compliance with the laws. And as the gurus in governance, you know that those are areas that we are grappling with: corruption, misuse of power, non-compliance with the laws, which then ends up with loss of public trust. So when we ensure that there is a functional judicial system, it means that we are bolstering public confidence in government institutions. And by government, we are not just talking about the national government. We are also talking about institutions. We need to build trust. So under that focus area, there are a list of the key pieces of legislation that we follow most of the time. I don't think I want to go through them. You can see we start with the Constitution. At number 15, we have even public funds, how we establish public funds at the devolved level. My fourth area of focus is on building capacity in the county governments. This indeed is very crucial if we are going to enhance governance. And technical capacity, it cannot be gainsaid that it has been a challenge. And if capacity is a challenge, we find that there are delays in preparing vital documents, and this then leads to delays in enacting crucial bills and even delayed decision-making at every level. So lack of requisite skills to manage the IFMIS, for instance. For those of you who work probably in a government institution, you know that if you don't have skills in IFMIS, then your payments are going to delay. Even those of you who are suppliers to government, you have always heard that if your records are not right in the IFMIS, you are not going to get paid. So what we are saying is that then enhancing skills in technology, such as IFMIS, will lead to enhanced capacity in delivering services. And then again, even when we know that the government does try to train, even the counties, they really put in a lot of money in training their staff. But what happens in terms of governance, what we have found out is that immediately I leave, if I was the governor of Nyamira, for instance, yeah, when I leave with my group. Kweli ama uongo? So when I live with the whole group, what happens to the resources that we put into training those people? It goes to waste, needless to say. So we find out then that the state of governance has not been improving with change of governments every 5 years. Indeed, that is a major drawback. The last area that I would like to cover under this is on physical discipline, resource mobilization, and financial independence, which is really my pet area. Now, under physical discipline, something, okay. So what is fiscal discipline? In very few words, the ability to manage expenditures and revenues responsibly so you avoid deficits and avoid debt accumulation. I'm sure something comes to mind, something like pending bills, which you have been hearing, something like public debt, but I'll not be touching on that today. Now, I'm touching on governance. How about resource mobilization? Yeah? To generate revenues through the various sources available to you so that you can fund your services and carry out development. Then financial independence. How do you get independent? How do you sustain your operations and development without necessarily relying on other parties? You have to rely on grants, you have to rely on borrowing to do what you need to do. Because if those three are not properly done, I can assure you there is no governance you are talking about. Everything else will fall apart. So then what are we saying? What is it that we can do in our own little sense to improve governance? And that is really where I'm zooming in. With all those ideas, the 5 focus areas that I have touched. We see that the Constitution recognizes the need for proper plans Now, when we talk of plans, budgets come maybe top or very near the top. Yeah? These budgets must be prepared in a participatory manner, and we have been through that about the public participation. But we are saying that if we are going to improve budgeting and expenditure management, we'll have solved a lot of the governance challenges that we have. Schedule 4 of the Constitution gives the county governments the responsibility for county planning and development. And we also know that if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. I'm sure maybe some other speaker will be telling us what kind of plans are required even before you prepare your budget. The budget is only the financial plan, but you need a series of other plans before you can make the budget. Otherwise, your budget will be meaningless. Some of the problems that we have encountered in the budgets that we have: inflated OSR, that is own source revenue. So in your budget, you list everything that you would like to spend on, and you have a total. Then you look at the sources of revenue that are going to finance that, and you find a shortfall. And then you have a balancing figure. You call that figure the own source revenue. You don't even know how it's going to be made, but you say that now your budget is balanced. That is a farce. And that is where our governance starts breaking apart. So stringent fiscal discipline, clear and consistent budgeting procedures, as well as periodic audits would ensure that spending is efficient and aligned with the goals that we have set. Let me look at recommendation 2. And this is how to mobilize resources and diversify. A very, very important area to look at in order to improve governance. We all know that inadequate financial resources are a barrier to effective service delivery. We must match expectations with reality. I cannot overemphasize that. And that means that we must make realistic revenue collection targets. We must also devise innovative ways of collecting revenue to avert budgetary deficits. And what we know is that sometimes we have the sources of revenue, and indeed we know the revenue can come from those areas, but we don't have innovative ways of collecting, recording, and utilizing the same. That is where, again, you will find that governance is betrayed. Another recommendation is on efficient use of public resources. So this involves investing in systems that could ensure that funds are used optimally. What are some of these? We have seen e-governance. E-governance is broad. It's about the systems that you use to gather your data, to process your data, to do your reporting, so that it is done in the most efficient manner. We have seen data-driven budgeting processes. Right now, our budget processes are basically manual, using Excel, but we could do better. So under this, we could empower the county governments with tools and technologies that enhance transparency, that can track financial flows to reduce leakages and ensure funds are used for the intended purposes. Ladies and gentlemen, I am sure you can relate to that. Let me go to recommendation 4, and this is about enhancing financial reporting and accountability. So here we are talking about how to establish strong financial reporting frameworks, ensuring that we have timely publication of financial statements and that budget implementation reports and audit reports are not only implemented on time, but are adhered to, because a lot of recommendations are given in those reports. So we need to strengthen public financial management reforms to ensure that counties adhere to the principles of good governance, ensuring that public trust and accountability are realized. And the last recommendation, of course, by no means exhaustive, is how to practice longer-term planning. We can have short-term planning, we have medium-term planning, but we must also practice longer-term planning. And here, I'm talking about preparing strategic plans that transcend the terms. It doesn't have to be, I have my 5 years, and this is what I want to do, and there's a clean cutoff, because that then makes us very short-term. We need to look at what will happen beyond that 5-year term. So some of this may mean that county governors, for instance, plan for the longer term by taking up projects that were there before them and also expecting others who come after them to take on their projects as long as it is in the interest of service delivery to the people. Staff, for instance, who have been trained. You can also take some of the staff that belonged to your predecessor. You don't have to dispatch them, because then you don't lose the capacity building there. Yeah? Another area that we have seen a lot of times are pending bills, and when a new administration comes in, they don't want to settle the bills for the previous government. That has been a big problem for a long time. And we are saying that that indeed is what destroys governance. So as I move towards finishing, we did say that we need to link whatever we are doing to sustainable development goals. And some of the areas where we are then linking up with sustainable development goals include fostering sustainable economic growth by having investments in local industries. And here we are talking about agriculture, we are talking of renewable energy and tourism, all of which can produce long-term economic benefits for counties. And I have seen counties such as those that have encouraged tourism doing very well, and Narok County is one of them, among others. Then we need to think about building local infrastructure, improving the roads, the schools, and the health centers. These indeed are essential for sustainable development and enhance the overall quality of life for the residents. Then again, we are looking at value-adding activities, looking at locally produced materials such as hides, raw hides, ngozi. And I remember yesterday, this reminds me of a little story. Yesterday, when I was coming from the airport, I was just looking at these videos. You know how we are used to looking at TikTok and the rest. And I saw a very interesting video of a Nigerian woman who was making weaves and hair extensions from banana stems, believe it or not. Some of you who come from where I come from, Banana Land, in Kisii, you know everybody has bananas. Imagine how much we have lost because we just cut those stems. Sometimes we give them to the animals, sometimes we just throw them away. But there is this Nigerian lady who's value adding by making very nice, she even makes sandals, hats, you know, all sorts of wonderful things. So this is what we are talking about here. Value adding for locally produced goods. And this, you are aware that the government now is encouraging the county aggregated industrial parks, KIPES, and I believe the governor here will be telling us more about this. So this is about linking development to the SDGs, to the Sustainable Development Goals. And as I finish, building local resilience to climate change. This is an idea that we are now hearing a lot. It's about developing resilience to strategies that address climate change. You are all seeing flooding, you are seeing, you know, disasters, natural disasters, because we are not looking after the environment. So we must have sustainable agricultural practices, building climate resilient infrastructure where we make provision for drainage and protecting natural resources as a whole. So when we engage communities in environmental conservation efforts, actively empowering them to protect their local environments, we are indeed linking our governance to sustainable development goals. And the last one on SDGs, before I forget, is about social inclusion and equity. Very, very important. And this is about how the governance policies in the devolved governments can prioritize marginalized groups. We are talking about women, about the youth, about persons with disabilities, and how to ensure that all those have equitable access to opportunities. So we must continually work towards closing these disparities in access to services, in access to education, to healthcare and employment, and therefore, and thereby fostering social cohesion and reducing poverty. And we all know about the BETA, which is about the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, which focuses on inclusive growth and equitable economic empowerment. So you must ask, in your area of influence, how are you implementing the BETA? Don't ask about what the government is doing for you. Ask what you are doing in your area of jurisdiction to ensure that those principles and practices are realized in your area. Now, so in conclusion, what have I been saying? We are saying that the success of devolved governance in enhancing local resilience, in building public trust, and achieving sustainable development hinges on robust government systems, on fiscal discipline and financial independence. Here we are talking about focusing on transparency, on accountability, and fiscal responsibility, where national and county governments can create a conducive environment for local development, foster economic growth, and social equity. The ultimate goal, therefore, is to empower local communities, provide them with the tools to thrive independently while aligning with national and international sustainability goals. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to end there and throw the ball back to you. Thank you very much.